I tried it over and over and nothing did.
You can approve the amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small.
I'm pretty sure it was just.
That was just that, huh? But that's the end. Weird. Almost. Really yet?
Yes. Recording work.
And he knew me or recognized me. But he knew me. Yeah.
I'd like to call tonight's city council meeting for Tuesday, August the 6th at 7 p.m. to order. Nancy, would you call, make a roll call, please?
Counselor Funderburk,
Is excused?
Counselor Duffloff.
Here.
Counselor Katie McMillan. Here. Counselor Ashley Wheeler. Counselor Dennis McMillan. President Ten Eyck.
Here.
Mayor Sipe.
Also excused.
Can we rise for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Favorite part of the night.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion for approval of tonight's agenda or any questions about that.
Mr. Dylan, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay,
I don't know what you say there.
Council President.
Okay, Council President,
Council
okay, I make a
President.
motion.
How it works.
Okay.
We've got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? It's been seconded. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Item 5, city manager report, 5.1.
Yeah, if we can go in 5.2 and then 5.1, if that's okay. I got, yeah, we'll just do them both together. We'll sort of switch the order. So just wanted to give just a couple of really quick updates on some things we have going on. I included in your packet, we attached the city outlook, one really 2-pager there. Obviously, we have, as we're meeting right now, we have National Night Out going on. So many of you over next door at Village Square Park. That goes until 8 o'clock. So that will most likely be done by about the time we're wrapping up here tonight. Really good turnout there tonight. And of course, it's being celebrated across the country. If you haven't had a chance to stop in to our library yet, we have our new double-sided little brochure is available. It has every event that we have scheduled between now and the end of the calendar year. And there's some really cool stuff on there. Stuff for teens, stuff for seniors, and everybody in between. Of course, and then other programs for younger kids. And then we just have a lot of great programs. But one of the things that we're really excited about is the library was awarded the Guadalajara International Book Fair. And so with that, they're able to, I'll just read it to you here. It says, it's considered one of the most important literary fairs in the world and the largest book fair in the Americas. The International Book Fair occurs in November, and the opportunity allows the library to handpick culturally appropriate books in Spanish for our community. So we'll be, they're here giving out books tonight at National Night Out, and then we're awarded that to participate in that program. So we're really excited about that. We have just some quick updates on some of our projects here. Our pedestrian bridge is looking to be, it's mostly completed. It looks like it's done. It's not quite done. We still got to hang utilities on there and then do some of the last trail connections, but coming along quickly. But the adjacent trail number 2 is complete. Nugent Park, if you've been by out there, you'll see the playgrounds are most of the structures are installed. So now we just need to install the fall protection there. So that's the sort of squishy material that's also solid and porous, so that rain and other things will go through it. And then our pavilion will start going up towards within the next 5 or 6 weeks. So you'll start seeing that come to life here pretty quickly. And we'll get started on our golf course banquet room upgrades right after Rock the Lock. So we're about, which believe it or not, is about 60 days out. So we'll get started on that here pretty soon. To finish up the summer, you'll see road maintenance crews out doing crack seal and pothole repairs to kind of wrap up and finish up the summer before that's done. You got to kind of be in the sweet spot for that. If you're over, if the road temperatures are over about 92 degrees, then it's too hot for the oils and the emulsions and stuff there. It just doesn't set like it's supposed to and just becomes a sticky mess for everybody. So we're actually waiting for the temperatures to come down some before they're able to get out there to do some of that work. Other than that, we have our Coffee with Cop program has been highly successful, really been pushing social media, not only in the police department, but throughout all of our programs throughout the city. So just wanted to give you a quick update on what we have going on. And then wanted to introduce you, is everybody here? They're all here. Okay, so you might recall at the beginning of the year in April, Chris Waite, our former Parks Director, he headed off to the city of Richland as their new Parks Director. We did a national search for new Parks Director. We interviewed several candidates, even made an offer to one, and then the offer was declined because that candidate's spouse took a job somewhere else, and so they were moving on. Out of the rest of the applicant pool, we didn't feel that they necessarily were going to be the most qualified or the best fit for the community. So we looked at alternatives at looking for an interim Parks Director that might be able to serve us to the end of the year. And we interviewed a couple different candidates for that. Even made an offer to an interim there, and they were out of the Portland area, and just the cost of living, and even on an interim basis, we just weren't able to make the dollars and cents work out. And so we were content with sort of staying the course and moving forward in parks. But during this whole time, we split the Parks Director duties between myself, Melissa, and Esmeralda. And it became pretty abundantly clear that we did this nationwide search and interviewed all these people, and we have our next Parks Director here with us. So I want to introduce you to Esmeralda Burgess, who you know very much, has been promoted to be our new Parks Director for the Parks Department. So I want to wish her congratulations on that. So it's that.
I am very happy and excited to take on the Parks and Rec department. And we've hired a whole new crew, and we're really excited to hit the ground running and see what we can do for you too.
We brought them here. We wanted to introduce them to you. Some of them are familiar faces. So Luke has also been promoted as our Parks and Recreation Manager. So now each department has a director and then a manager level below that, and then employee. So Parks was the only department that didn't have sort of the number two in the department. And the day-to-day operations, it became abundantly clear that that just isn't the best way to operate in that department. You have to have kind of that bridge between the director and ground level staff, just because they have to be that hybrid position that both boots on the ground, get things done, but then also make some of those day-to-day management decisions. And so I'll let Luke introduce himself a little bit more there, but he's been with us a long time, has management experience, and we're really excited that he accepted that position. So I'll let Luke introduce himself on that and congratulate him on his promotion as well.
I know most of you, but I'm Luke. I've been in the Parks Department for almost 2.5 years now. Been through landing days, rock blocks, and kind of the start of building this department here. So I just want to keep it growing and keep including all the different city organizations into our stuff, and that's kind of our goal. So we're excited for my 3 new coordinators too. So,
Will you introduce us to him? I'll have them stand and introduce themselves as well.
Kimberly Macias, Terry Holmes, and Marla Martins.
Can you take a moment to tell us, get to know you? We'll have Carrie go first.
So I'm
You were
from
already
the,
standing. So,
right?
you just follow.
So I'm from the area. I grew up in Umatilla. I'm from here. The last 3 years I worked at McNary Heights, and so I have my school district buddies, and now I'm full-time with the city. I spent the last year as a rec aide, and so now I can kind of like make us a little more inclusive and kind of bridge the little bit of a gap and have a good time.
I live in the neighboring Hermiston. I was with their Parks and Rec and I transitioned over here. So I'm excited
To the better Parks and Rec.
the position what we could do for you. All right. I'm excited to see what we can do.
Great.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Marla. Today is my literal first day, so have to bear with me. I'm originally from the East Coast, owned my own business for over 25 years. Came from the Kennewick School District and decided to get out of the school district. And I'm really excited to join the team here. Everybody's been wonderful. And I'm excited to start working on events and getting everything up and going.
So I want to just take a minute to introduce you to all of them and really also just unabashedly just sort of brag. We are boxing outside our weight class. These are terrific candidates, terrific employees, unbelievably great and diverse background of experiences. And so we're really excited to see how we can move this forward. Of course, there are additions to our staff that we have at the Marina and RV Park and the Big River Golf Course. And so this is not even, it's about half the department if you look at it that way. So just really excited for that. Just wanted to take a moment to say hello. If you had any questions, they're here for you. Or if you had anything you wanted to add.
That's awesome. Luke, that's great. Congratulations. Esmeralda, that's awesome. I love to see the homegrown and get into that position because you guys know the lay of the land. That's amazing. And you've also got the built-in respect of the people around you. So that's awesome. I've seen both of you just grow and grow and grow. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I think this is the 6th title Esmeralda's had in 8 years working for this.
Any accountants looking for a job, she just vacated that position and we're hiring.
I'm like the guy from the movie, The Proposal, where he's on that position.
Very up for this year. But I understand completely why you did it.
Oh, the school is my heart. I mean, this is what I do.
Yeah. It's really great to be out here and all the kids, Miss Carrie, Miss Carrie.
Oh, it's coming from all directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to like, shh, it's quiet.
Well, congratulations on your promotions and welcome to all the new places. You told an amazing place to be. Good stuff. Okay, moving on to public comment, Chief Bridge, would you?
We do not want to.
Public comment is an opportunity for citizens to express opinions, raise issues, and provide information to the city council. Comments presented during this segment should be on city-related issues and not on items that are scheduled for a public hearing on the same evening's agenda. If you wish to speak, please provide the requested information on the sign-up sheet. Being sure to note the topic on which you'll speak. And when called up to the podium, begin by stating your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak unless otherwise instructed. Josiah Garrett.
Yeah, a couple things for you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Josiah Barron, Director of the Umatilla Chamber of Commerce, 100 Klein Avenue. Just once again, a few more announcements and updates, and things going on in the community and with our members. Brown's Lunchbox, if you haven't been there, the food truck out in Power City, just across from Umatilla Sage Riders, they are changing their hours to extend their hours even more. And it's been getting a lot of business, and so now Brown's Lunchbox will be open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or until they're sold out for the day. If you haven't tried her from scratch meals, really super delicious, the chicken and waffles or the burger she had there. I recommend it. And Old Nick's is also extending their hours. Old Nick's restaurant, just down the road here, will be open now on Sundays as well, from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then also now on the nonprofit side are just a reminder from Stepping Stones Alliance with Project Path. They still have a lot of openings for meals that they need for the month of August. So if any of you would like to, or if you know people, they're looking for either hot meals that they can serve for their dinners or meals that they can turn into freezer meals for their backup. And then the Agape House is also having a drive to help fight hunger. They've partnered with the Human Being in Hermiston. So on Friday, August 16th, then every drink by the Human Being in Hermiston, $1 from that purchase will go toward the coffee house to help fight hunger and help feed the kids in our area and then also other people. The great work that Eastern Oregon Mission is doing. And then the last couple things I wanted to mention. This is a little bit farther out, but just to get it on your calendar so you can save the date. Our next Chamber Quarterly Luncheon is coming up September 10th. And the guest speaker we've confirmed is Representative Greg Smith will be there speaking. Right now we'll be at the Umatilla Chamber because we've had smaller turnouts for our luncheon, but with Representative Smith being the speaker, I'll see as the RSVPs come in to see if we need to move the location. But that will be Tuesday, September 10th from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. You can give the chamber a call or go onto our website and reserve your tickets there. For chamber members, it's $10 for lunch, and for non-members, it's $15. And before I go, I just also wanted to, I see Luke stepped out, but congratulations to the new Parks and Rec team. Congratulations, Esmeralda. And I look forward to the chamber continuing to work with the city.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda, item number 7, we have 7.1, which is the July 16 minutes, and 7.2 is July 8 invoices. Are there any questions, comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve. And I think we take 7.1 and 7.2 together.
Council President, I make a motion, we approve 7.1 and 7.2. It's presented item.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
I'll say again.
Then seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Item 8, new business, 8.1, local business grant award.
So thank you. So we received another application from Kelly Nobles for the Nobles RV Park. This is his second grant application within the 4-year period, so he is limited on the amount that he can receive. That's why you see staff is recommending the $25,000 as opposed to the full award of $27,500. Since he's already received one full award for the original phase of the RV park, he's only eligible for the $25,000. That will max him out for the 4-year period in the local business grant. All of the information is in there, but it is for the new office building that will be constructed down there at the RV park. Happy to answer any questions you have with the plans and some of the drawings and the estimates.
Is the framing going up over there? Is that the building or is that something different?
So they are started on it already. This would be a retroactive reimbursement, but he was committed. He's required to build the office anyways. He was just trying to take advantage of the grant program. So he has already started construction.
Any questions or comments from council?
No.
We ready for a motion? Whenever you're ready.
Council President, I make a motion to approve 8.1 new business, local business grant award.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.2, planning commission appointment. There's a motion to confirm David Garcia Correa to planning commission position number 3. Is there any comment regarding appointment? Hearing none, do we have a motion to confirm Mr. David Garcia Correa?
Mr. Council President, I make a motion, we approve new business item 8.2, the mayor's appointment of David Garcia Correa to the planning commission position number 3.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. New business item 8.3, resolution number 02-2025. A resolution authorizing the city manager to retroactively execute a purchase agreement and sign a statutory warranty and other documents necessary for the purchase of real property.
So at a previous council meeting, I apologize, I don't have my surface in front of me. It looks like the 18th of June, council directed staff to pursue a purchase option for 2 pieces of property just generally across the street here owned by the Nobles family, or Lucy LLC, I believe is on the paperwork. Staff was successful in obtaining the purchase agreement at council's price, and this would authorize the city manager to finalize that transaction and sign the statute of warranty deed to complete that transaction.
Ever taken a speed reading course?
I usually try.
Brandon will not be the reason we're here till 10.
Is there any discussion from council regarding resolution 02-2025?
This is the one we talked about. That's the second time. Yeah, I don't see any reason. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 02025. 2025.
Okay, thank you for your motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Okay, it's been motion and seconded. All in favor? Aye. And opposed? Motion carries. New business item 8.4, resolution number 03-2025. A resolution authorizing the city manager to finalize and sign a PPP team agreement to pursue broadband funding to design and construct a fiber to the home network in the city of Louisville. Comment from staff?
So this is also something that council has seen 2 or 3 times now over the last couple of years. This is our partnership with Core Fiber to build a fiber to the home network throughout the city. This is the agreement that would allow us to move forward with some of the design and finalized funding if we're successful in the grant program. So when we applied for that broadband technical assistance program, we are right now in what the state is calling a challenge process. So one of the other telecommunications providers did submit a challenge to the area that Core Fiber was looking at in the service, the area they were looking to expand service to. There is a formal process that the state goes through that should be wrapped up within the next few days. But this agreement is necessary for us to be able to get those funds and then move forward with design. We don't know if we've actually received the awards yet. We are feeling very confident on that application, and this would just allow us to move forward with our partners. There are some trade-offs, a 2% reduction in the franchise fee for the first 5 years in recognition of the investment that they're bringing into Umatilla. There's also some kind of requirements for us to work with them to kind of streamline right-of-way permitting so that they can actually get the infrastructure installed once that it's been designed. But outside of that, they will follow all normal city processes. It just allows us to work with them to administer to that. Certainly happy to answer any questions you might have, but I think you've also seen this a couple of times.
Any questions or comments, council?
This is another one we've seen multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Me too.
So, do we have a motion for approval of resolution 03-2025?
Mr. Council President, I'd like to make a motion we approve new business item 8.4, resolution number 03-2025.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. New business item 8.5, resolution number 04-2025. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a maintenance assistance grant agreement between the state of Oregon Marine Corps and the city of Umatilla. Do we have comment from staff?
Yeah, so this is a grant that the city has received since we took over operations of the Umatilla Marina. The grant used to be on an annual cycle, and 2 years ago it switched to a biannual grant. And so they were a little bogged down with the new grant agreements, and we did not receive the 23 to 25 agreement until a couple months ago. So we're getting it to you now. But this gets us through June of 2025.
Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, we're ready to entertain a motion for resolution number 04-2025.
Mr. Council President, I'd like to make a motion, we approve new business item 8.5, resolution number 04-20.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Resolution number 04-2025 carries, passes. New business item 8.6, resolution number 05-2025, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a GMGC contract and guaranteed maximum price with Cascade Civil Corp for construction of the Umatilla Falls Entry Monument Project. Do we have comment from staff?
Yeah, so this is a project you guys have seen a lot lately. Back in January, you authorized us to use a CMGC procurement method rather than our standard, just because we were not successful when we first tried. And then subsequently at your March 8th meeting, you made an motion to award the contract to Cascade Civil. We have been working with Cascade and JB Engineers since then to bring you back some mock-ups you've seen, told us what you like and don't like, and then really the last month and a half has been putting numbers to paper and getting us to that GMP price. So Paul's here from Cascade Civil if you have any questions. Otherwise, we're pretty happy with where we landed. The project cost is right around 1.3 million, which is significantly under what we had budgeted. That is Cascade Civil's portion. There is still some additional on JB's end. Paul, did you have anything?
Just here to support. Thank you. Happy to answer questions. Do you have any questions for Paul? Any other questions or comments for staff?
My only comment is I can't wait till we're ready.
Yeah.
Done by like tomorrow.
If I could be so bold, you know, we are planning to start next week, so. You haven't voted yet, so I didn't mean to preempt anything.
We have a motion to approve resolution number 05-2025.
Mr. Council President, with great pride. Resolution number 05-2025.
Very good. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Not, passed. Very good. All right, new business item 8.7, resolution number 06-2025. A resolution authorizing the city manager to sign various engagement letters for legal services for the city with Tonkin Torp LLC, Lindley Hart LLP, and Morewater PC, and to execute a personal service agreement with League Oriented Cities for a limited legal advice and services, and to delegate authority to the city manager to sign and execute all future engagement letters or personal services agreements for legal services as may be necessary to carry out the day-to-day operations of the city. Do we have comment from staff?
Yeah, so 4 years ago, we updated our procurement policy. And so staff follows all ORS and city's procurement policies when it comes to all services that are contracted with the city. Anything from a PO, which is considered a contract, to an actual contract, which could be several millions of dollars, and everything in between, which includes legal services. We have determined that we've had a lot of success using special firms that specialize in specific services. So for example, you have Morewater PC on here. Very small firm. It's him plus a paralegal plus a legal assistant, just 3 staff. But all he does is water in Oregon and Washington. That's it. And he's been our water attorney since before I was here, and he's done well by us. And so there's all the other examples and things that are there. But rather than we could have as an operational option, we could bring on as a staff member, legal counsel as staff. County has that. They have Doug Olson is their legal counsel on staff. But we've gone through the contracted model to do it this way. And so where there's and you'll see in the resolution there's perhaps some not exact clarity as to whether I should be signing those specifically, because there may come a time in which the hired attorney may need to give you bad news about me, for example, or something like that. So what this does is it clarifies that I can have the authority to sign in good faith these engagement letters to bring these attorneys on for those services. And then you have several other policies in place if, for example, I was the point of topic or something like that. So this allows to just remove any sort of confusion that may be in the policy. Now we can get this in the resolution. And then as we update that procurement policy, which we do an odd number of years, we can clarify some of that language there. But this gets us to that point.
Any other questions or comments from council? At this time, we are looking for a motion.
Council President, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the business item 8.7 resolution number 06-2025.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to our second public comment period. Do we have anyone wishing to speak to council?
No, we do not.
Chief Bridge, okay, we will move on to item number 10, discuss item. 10.1 is the Greater Umatilla Enterprise Zone update and recent discussions with local taxing districts and combined capital improvement requirements have adopted city master plans. Good. Comments from staff?
Yeah, thank you. So, recall towards the beginning of the year, back in March, we were working through several items with the city. One of those was trying to work a partnership with the school district so that they can get through their land use process. So for the intermediate school. And one of the things that came up, ODOT had an appeal originally pending on that application for improvements that needed to take place at Highway 730 and Powerline Road. That just led to kind of a more in-depth discussion as to general funding that the city receives through its enterprise zone program, particularly those payments in lieu of taxes through that program and through the abatement program. And so up until I've been here 5.5 years, and in that time I'd met with several, but not all, of the chief appointed officials in relation to the enterprise zone program, some of the impacts that were there. But I would say that those were informal discussions, general discussions, not necessarily more information sharing rather than trying to kind of move forward as to what the future might look like through the enterprise zone program. And so I reached out to send out an invitation to each of the chief appointed officials from each of the taxing districts that are within the enterprise zone and started having meetings. We've had 2 meetings then, and I just kind of wanted to give you a little update as to what we've heard so far, very high level discussion of what we heard so far, and then to also provide, I have attached there, one of those I presented at the last meeting, which is a list of active projects and soon, like on the horizon projects that we have, which is an internal document that you'll see on there that has JUB's logo in it on the top of that. And then a staff analysis where we've taken every master plan that we've adopted, which we've updated every master plan throughout the city within the last 5 years from 2019 till today, which includes water, wastewater, trail, parks, transportation system, and so on. And so we've taken all of those items that were identified in the years in which they were identified for improvements and the estimated dollar amount according to today's dollars, not necessarily future dollars, and organize those for you as just a part of this whole discussion. And so I'll start with just the general discussion has been, or started off with, you know, the other districts, and I think rightfully so, express that they just haven't had very much opportunity, and some express, if any, opportunity to sort of be at the proverbial table when it comes to the enterprise zone and to talk about impacts of what the zone might be. And so the discussion focused primarily on what are ways in which the enterprise zone might be able to partner with these other districts, specifically when it comes to these abatement payments that are made. So each district, of course, has its own unique purpose and function that they serve. So, you know, vector control mosquito district, they have a very specific purpose. We have our own charter. The school district has theirs, hospital, fire, and so on. And so as you can, the needs in the community are quite significant and diverse. And so the discussion kind of focused around really this goal and intent where we're trying to create and harness an environment of partnership and ways in which we might be able to help each other out wherever we can, but to also a lot of discussion on equitable distribution of those funds. We haven't defined what that means yet, and but there's been some ideas, I guess, shared, but I don't feel it, just because those are brainstorming right now, it's not necessarily appropriate to kind of say what people are thinking in that regard. But I will say we talked about maybe earmarks that could go into the upfront contract with contractors, which is what we've done before. We have in our current enterprise zone agreements, we have earmarks that specifically pull dollars out for fire protection for the school district. And the last one we did with SABE, we have an earmark that is $1 million that goes directly to the hospital district building. So we've done that before. Some of the frustration has been is that a lot of those, the enterprise zone dollars that we received today were the ones that I inherited 5.5 years ago. And those ones didn't necessarily have those earmarks. The new ones moving forward have that. And it's taken this long for those buildings to go through the whole process of getting their land use stuff settled, getting their building plans done, getting their permits and getting built, and then finally getting into the program. And so most of the districts haven't seen funds or any significant funds, I would say, that have come from that, but they will starting this November. But even still, comparatively speaking, you're looking at somewhere between 50,000 and 85,000 each year that would go to some of those districts, whereas the city's amount and the county's amount is higher than that. This year, we're only looking at about 2 million coming to the 2.1 million coming to the enterprise zone, and we split that with the county 50-50. So the city's getting about $1 million in enterprise zone funding this year, whereas some of the other districts are getting 50,000 or 75,000 and so on. And so there's some discussion about how, you know, those seem to be at their, you know, at first blush disproportionate and maybe not adequate to meet the needs of the diverse goals of the districts. There was discussion about, you know, creating, the county expressed that they don't have interest in creating anything in addition to what they're already doing. So they have a grant program now where they set aside through the budgetary process, so it's different each year, funds that they get through enterprise zone that's specifically for any taxing district within the county that's economic development based. So somebody can apply to their grant program and get certain dollar amounts depending on what their funding looks like each year. And we found out that a lot of the districts didn't even know that program existed. And so there was at least some learning that came through that. So there's some benefit there. So we talked about that might be something that an option that maybe we might be looking at as well. But there seemed to be some discussion about, well, that and ultimately that pits us against each other. And do we want to pit ourselves against each other through some sort of program? But the county said they'd be interested in maybe expanding that program, but anything else outside of that, they've expressed that they don't really have any interest in creating sort of an annual distribution that's, you know, in perpetuity throughout the program. And so those meetings are ongoing this month, in the month of August. I wanted to have this meeting first before I sent out to the district, what we're doing in the month of August is really sending out a what do you want sort of questionnaire. So and I don't know how we've exactly are going to frame that yet, but the idea there is that if, seeing what the program is, about $1 million to the city this year, we expect $3 million the following fiscal year, maybe $4 million the following fiscal year at that. If they had a say, what would they like to see? Would they like to see some sort of percentage of those funds distributed? Would they like to see a grant program? Would they like to see upfront earmarks? Would they like to see specific programs? And there's a lot of different options. And so we're going to get ourselves a little more organized and succinct and see what they might want. But the question that I really have for you as I'm trying to manage expectations and work with the group, because I haven't presented really any stand from the city, because we still are working through this process, and really it's really kind of in the infancy of the program. But I wanted to be able to control the expectation of, I don't want to go into that group and say these are all 5 options and they're all actual options. I want to be able to say at least the initial thoughts and feelings from the council are having these upfront and general discussions, and this is where they're generally leaning. And so we can focus more of our efforts and energy on that type of work. Or if I wanted to say, let's keep it broad moving forward, and we can continue to bring you some of that back. The reason why we gave you this combined list of capital improvement plans is because it's unbelievably substantial in here. So the total amount of capital improvement required according to all of our master plans over the next 20 years is $476 million over the next 20 years. And with the majority of that happening, if we were to implement each of what's in there on the master plans, it's $280 million between now and 2030. So over the next 6 years, we need to invest $280 million to just meet. That's the demand that we anticipate knowing that's here. Now, some of these are, we can pick on parks for a minute. Some of these are parks master plan stuff. And so those are quality of life improvements. If you don't upgrade the fishing pier, for example, or if we don't put in a shooting range or dog parks or tennis courts or something, that just means that those are services that the community already doesn't have, or it's the level they're at. But a growing community, and the Parks Master Plan certainly says these are things that the community wants and what they expect from their community moving forward. But it's not, if we don't do those things, you can sort of kick the can and delay those. But even if you pull those out, you're still looking at approximately 200 million in improvements over that same period of time. It is true that development pays for development. So the large industrial developers that are coming in, they pick up the tab for the majority of those improvements. However, we never build for just one customer. So for example, if what their demand requires a 6-inch pipe, but we have our water master plan that says an 8-inch pipe has to go in. We put in an 8-inch pipe, but most of the time we're responsible for our 25% proportionate share of that cost, because there's no benefit or need for that developer to do it. If they were to do it at their cost 100%, they'd build just for them, and that would be something that our code allows. But we are trying to expand and plan for that future growth that might come upon us. And we've done that before, and it's a good thing we have, particularly in the industrial park, because other customers are coming on and building up there and they're able to connect. The developer mitigates that with latecomer agreements and things like that. So a lot of that money can come directly from the industrial developers, but not all of it. We know that we're expanding up in South Hill, for example, and most of that's residential expansion, and the developer's putting that in. Same sort of concept there. Sometimes they have to build a little bit bigger pipe than what they're doing just for themselves. So there's proportionate share for that. They have connection fees, they have SDCs, they have all of those things. So they are paying for that, but not necessarily 100% of that. And then some of it is system-wide expansion. So our wastewater treatment plant, for example, its footprint is at about 60% of its footprint. And that was good planning by councils before and staff before to be able to expand, to put in additional clarifiers and aerators and processing facilities there at the wastewater treatment plant. That work needs to be done here really quickly. We need to expand Coyote Reservoir for our water towers. That's not any specific developer that's necessarily picking on those. That's the system-wide improvements. And so we've listed them all there. We've provided which master plan calls for them, what year. They might have had a specific year like 2029, but we classified it in that 6-year chunk. So you can kind of see 6 years and then 5 years and 5 years. And so the question becomes is, as we look at each of our own requirements that we have here, but also recognizing that our other districts have impacts that the growth is upon them. I'm just looking to open up this discussion so we can get some general guidance as we continue to meet with these groups moving forward.
I have a quick question before we step into this. Pages 311 and 312, I could not read, in my packet. Could you put those up? Can we see them in the other? Couldn't do it here. And so I'd like to.
Sure. It's the spreadsheet by program. Yeah, we can get that up onto the screen. No, that's the CIP list, the combined list of all city capital improvement plans. Yeah, we can get that there and we can blow that up a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get it to fit into a regular, because it's a big spreadsheet, trying to get it into a regular packet.
Well, I'd like to be able to see what's on.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
I got it on the surface.
So some of these, we provided the funding source in the notes. So some of these projects are funded. So the first one on the list, for example, is the Power City Brownell Sewer Project. We also have a Power City Brownell Water Project. And we, so those funds, we identify the dollar amount of each of those funds and where they're coming from. So we're getting sometimes from the Community Development Block Grant. We're getting, some of that is a loan. And some of it is principal forgiveness. Some of it is county contribution. So we've been, that's a $11.7 million project, and we've identified the funding for that project. That's one that we're working on right now, and will likely be, that's in this current fiscal year's budget for construction to start.
Do we need to go bigger?
And so that's the list of all of the CIP.
We went through every master plan and every capital improvement plan, every capital improvement plan listed in those master plans, and put it all into one document here. And when I say we, I mean Melissa did 99% of that work. So I just want to point that out, that this was Melissa, a very daunting task to dial through all of that.
There's so much.
So as we scroll through here, I think everybody can appreciate just how much we've got out there. Right. It's daunting as yeah.
So when we make these plans, we have to make, a lot of them are based upon estimated population growth. When you look at the city right now, PSU has us at about 7,800 in population. Each of the last 2 years, year over year population growth has been between 3.5% and 4%, and it's probably going to stay there. So when you consider that over the course of the decade, you're looking at about a 40%-ish between census. That's enormous. Now I get it, we're a small number, and so the smaller number from 1 to 2 is 100% growth, right? So there's percentages can be a little bit tricky. But that being said, we're talking about a 30 to 40% population growth over the next 6 to 10 years. That's why our wastewater treatment plant needs to have a 50% expansion, because we're expecting that sort of growth. Those expansions, when you build and construct, are supposed to last you at least 10, if not 20 years. Same sort of concept when it comes to parks. Always seems to be controversial, because it seems like, well, we don't need that. Those are all nice to haves. But they're part of these plans. And you can, to each their own, of which the hierarchy, is it water, is it sewer, is it roads, is it parks, is it whatever. Totally fine wherever you might fall on which one of those are most important. That's why you guys get to discuss, deliberate, and debate. That's all up to you. But these are the master plans that we have, and the items that we put up there for you. Some of these you'll notice aren't necessarily in a master plan. They're in your adopted council goals. And so we reference them there because they're more direct in the council goal, and they sort of meet other indirect parts of these other master plans.
it seems to me, and I'm just kind of open the door here, but it seems to me like there's so much here that just to address it and put conversation, I'd like to see an opportunity for us to be able to sit down in a roundtable type, you know, a workshop type atmosphere for council to be able to sit, to go through these items, to be able to digest them, to prioritize them. To me, I believe, we're talking about something that is far too important to just, try to make a decision as far as how we move forward.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for a decision today.
I don't think it's necessary to look for a decision how to tackle this. I think he's giving us an overview that I think a lot of people don't realize the position we're in. I don't think people understand, the position that we're in from our forefathers when the city was not set up to take on the growth that's here. And it hasn't been maintained or fixed in 70, 80,000 years. So consequently, if you don't take care of it, people, when we're building houses, they gotta have water. Their sewers gotta go somewhere, and that's our responsibility. So a lot of times, I think a lot of these people in the community, they see all these big people coming in and they're like, oh yeah, they're rich. Well, we're paying the piper from 40 years ago that wasn't taken care of. We talked about this. The city wasn't set up to grow as much as it is right now. And now we're just playing catch up. And so this is a glaring document that is evident to exactly that. We have homes that, at any time, their galvanized pipe that's running for them is probably going to break and we're going to take care of it. And the other part of that is when we go to hook up a hose for a fire, it's not going to work. Well, that's a bigger problem too. So, I think that's kind of, am I right?
Aren't we talking about taxing districts as far as
Yes.
Where the funds are going to go and how those are going to get dispersed and who gets what, when, and how much, right? And so, in order for us to do that, we're going to need to know what the wants are.
Yeah, and so that's, like I said, at the moment, our conversations, our first meeting was, I would say, more introductory, and really my goal in that meeting, I don't know how successful I was or wasn't, was to listen as much as I could. There are frustrations there, and I totally understand why. And so it was an opportunity to allow people to sort of air things out. I think that was fine. I think it was appropriate. And then the second meeting was more of an opportunity to kind of, the second and third document on here is our active project. So that shows you our budget, scope, timeline, what's been completed, how much dollars have been spent to date, so on and so forth. I just wanted to show you that as, so there is an internal process. We track all of these projects and we keep our engineer and our contractors accountable. And we have those meetings as often as need be. And then we certainly have all of that as rolled up at least at a quarterly level. But we have, as you can see on our projects page on our website, we have over 25 projects at any given time going on at the city, which is rather substantial. And those are all projects that are, $250,000 or more projects. We're not even counting the $50,000 here and there. So it's rather substantial. I think it's kind of two things. Some of it is, to Councilor Duffloff's point, what we all inherited. Deferred maintenance is a very real thing. And it's what the majority of all elected boards do when budgets are tight. I mean, it's sort of the keep the lights on policy because that's all we can afford to do. Totally understand the decisions of the past, totally appropriate. The problem though is when you get what we're seeing now is we're not seeing normal growth. A city our size would normally expect to see growth between maybe 3 to 7% over the course of a decade. We're seeing that almost year over year, not over the course of a decade. So when we talk about the growth that we're experiencing, when we say it's, astronomical or never before seen, all those things are true. And so we're having to balance. We have deferred maintenance that should have been done. And normally you can kind of get away with that because the growth is minimal over time and you can kind of make up for it as you go. We just don't have the luxury to do that with the rate at which we're growing now. And so, and then we have the growth is here. So some of these projects, if we don't build it, we won't be able to meet the needs of the community that's here. So we talk about water for a minute. South Hill right now is operating solely on our emergency backup, which was our original pipeline that feeds South Hill, which is an 8-inch water main under the Umatilla River. So when the flood wiped out our bridge, it wiped out our 12-inch main that was there. And so now we're quite literally on secondary water that was just for this purpose. If the main pipe was wiped out, we have a backup plan. Our reservoirs up there are not able to keep up. And we are pushing everything in Southfield to its absolute max and limit, especially when we're seeing 100-degree temperatures for 23 days in a row. Which is why our water master plan looked to update that. So now we have an urban irrigation plan that's in there to reuse water and to partner with the Bureau of Rec and the irrigation district. But those infrastructures are not in today. They're in these plans to do that. The bridge also now is going to have a brand new water main hung on that. And that'll, when we cut the ribbon to walk on that bridge, that pipeline will be operational at that time, or really close to operational at that time. And so that problem gets significantly mitigated once that bridge is in full operations. And when we start looking at reuse water, we have, and then we're doing similar things in McNary, for example. So it's tough to kind of go through this list and say, well, that's not maybe needed, maybe that's not. I will say there is certainly a hierarchy on some of these things that if we don't do A, we don't get to do B. But the majority of these are sort of in clusters of growth, and we're not necessarily able to break them apart. We can do that. That's a significant technical analysis and would take a long time to break that through, which is something we could do. But we wanted to present here, one of the comments that came up more so in the first meeting, not as much in the second, is there's certainly a perception that the city is, quote, flush with cash. And I just, for the record here, and I want to make sure it's in the minutes right there, that comment could not be less accurate. The city is not flush with cash. We have more cash coming in than we've ever had before. That is true. Most of that is coming from private funds, from developers, but development paying for development. But a lot of it in this fiscal year is, we like everybody else, I hate to blame COVID, but we went through a pandemic like everybody else. The supply chain was significantly impacted. It's part of the reason why our bridge isn't there and so many other things aren't completed yet. But that's why you're going to see we completed the trail. We're going to have Nugent Park done here in the next, 45, 60 days. We're going to finally break ground on business, and like all these things are finally, we're able to catch up after that backlog through that. Each of these dollars that are coming in, are not, and people might point to some other decisions that have been made, like Rock the Locks or something else that may or may not be controversial to some, and point to that's fiscally irresponsible. And it's an interesting comment, but one that I think we can address and talk to. But it addresses, we did that because it addresses some of the things that were pointed out in the Parks Master. People aren't making the same comment when we go put in a pipeline. Most of the time, they don't know it's going into the ground. But they wouldn't say a pipeline's frivolous because you have to have that. But yeah, it's in a master plan too. So which master plan and which project and which master plan gets priority? And that's what we're trying to say here, is that they're all important. They all serve their purpose. They're all earmarked in time. They all went through professional contracting, professional consultants. They went through public hearings and public processes and were adopted. It takes 9 months to adopt a master plan, and they all went through that process. And now staff is in the position that we are implementing those master plans at this point. We're no longer planning, we are implementing. And this is the comments on whether we should or shouldn't do something. That was like years ago. We're now in implementation mode. And so that's what I'm trying to point out here, is that I think that candidly, we, and by we, I mean mostly me, should have done a better job up front with meeting with these districts about understanding more so what their impacts actually were. And we may have been able to come up with some distribution policies or maybe better earmarks up front, or something that may have been more beneficial to these districts to meet the immediate impacts that are upon them now. That being said, we're at an opportunity now to move forward, but it's tough for me where I sit when I look at $280 million over the next 6 years. And maybe I could pull 100 out of that for prioritizing, but you're still at 180 million. That's still a giant amount of money. And so it's really tough to look at the other districts and say, yeah, we can give you some funds here or there, but at what cost? Which project do we not do? And then if we have a small program, and I'm sorry, Councilman, finish the thought, is on, if we gave everybody, for example, 50 grand a year or 20 grand a year, I'm sure they're happy to have it, but does that is that more beneficial than if we had a grant program similar to the counties where, no, we gave somebody we gave one person $1 million to do something big versus 10 people $100,000 to do something maybe not as big. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm just kind of posing the scenarios and the thoughts and the issues that staff is having as we're trying to move through this program.
First of all, we currently have 2 properties that are on enterprise zone and the rest of the city. Am I right?
No, we have one property that is essentially done with enterprise zone. In fact, this year, I think it is done.
That's the first one.
That's the very first one. The second property, which is off of Lind Road, that's in SIP, and one building of that very first one is also part of that SIP agreement. Everything else after that is enterprise zone.
We're not seeing benefit from everything else yet. Though.
Right, and that's, I think,
So I'm trying to understand.
there's been some of this discussion and debate, I guess, in those groups, again, on that, the city's flush with cash. When we're talking about the enterprise zone, we're talking about the city's getting $1 million this year. That's all we're getting from the enterprise zone this year, $1 million.
Total from enterprise zone to date, we've received 6.7 million.
So when you look at, we've adopted
Since 2012.
Right, we've adopted $179 million budget this year, huge. Majority of those funds are federal and state grants that we've been very successful in procuring, and private dollars that are also coming from the developer to the tune of, I think, like 50 million plus in the adopted budget coming from private investment this year. So there's, we've been when I say very successful, I mean overwhelmingly successful in our grant applications and our grant programs.
And that's kind of my point, sir, is, so I'm trying to understand the process, and so just bear with me. In the past, I've been in meetings and we've discussed enterprise zones, and that for a long time, they were kind of taboo. Matter of fact, wasn't it Prineville that got in trouble, or Google or something? One of the major companies got in trouble for enterprise zones, right?
Kind of happens throughout the state. Somebody steps in it. Yep.
So it's my understanding that when things were kind of outlined, everything kind of changed a little bit. And some of it was because of taxing districts and other people didn't get their funding, so forth. So, and it's kind of a unique area out here in the fact that we have all these different taxing districts. And first of all, I applaud to you wanting to extend the olive branch and be connected with those taxing districts, because I don't think that we have to. Am I right?
You're correct. There is no legal obligation at all to share these funds. That's correct.
So, and they have all the access to every grant that we have available. There's federal grants available to those taxing districts as well.
The majority, some of them are different. Yeah, but they also have access to ones that we don't. So sure.
So they have funding available, and they also, and it's a taxing district, so they receive, well, Darla, you're shaking your head, so maybe you can enlighten me, ma'am. Maybe you can enlighten me.
The bill just passed this year that allows special districts to apply for federal grants.
So they can.
They can now.
Right,
Because of this-
but they can.
but they couldn't.
Oh, okay. So they have funding available. Now, okay. As we move forward, they will have. And not by far, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have their portion.
Well, but I'll amend that a little bit too. The city has always been an available avenue for any special district to apply for funds. Yeah.
I'm just kind of going that way. My brain is just like a little squirrel running up there right now. It's getting tired. So I just kind of want to understand the process, because I want to make sure that, there's been a point of contention since the first building was built, from the fire district specifically, about not receiving funding and so forth, and the past chief that was there and everything that was there. There was a big point of contention when all of that happened, and that was probably a bad agreement on the front half. Again, since, Prineville, everything happened with enterprise zone and so forth. So I think we cleaned things up since we've gotten here. My thing is, I agree with you. I'm sick and tired of going to a meeting and hearing that Umatilla is flush with money and all of this stuff, and they're not seeing the parks, and they're not seeing the baseball field being built, and they're not seeing all this wonderful stuff in the community. When in reality is, we have millions of dollars of infrastructure that we need to take care of. We have a sewer plant right now that we need to take care of. So maybe it's messaging that we put out. I agree with you. And again, I just wanted to say that I applauded the olive branch and wanting to connect with those people. And me as a council person, I would support helping them because we have helped them. We've been a part of it, and whatever we can do to help them, I'm good with. But I just want to make sure that we understand that we also have other things. We have to take care of our community as well.
Well said.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That made sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I was around about.
I still don't fully understand the whole thing anyway, the whole concept, but I'm learning.
There's just a lot of pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those districts have been, I don't want to say forgotten about, but they haven't been necessarily funded appropriately. And as we have, and as we've grown, yes, we need more fire. Yes, we need to have a radio district. We need to have mosquito. We need to have all these other districts. The hospital district, it's imperative that we have it. I get it. Most communities, we would probably adopt and they would have we would have a Umatilla fire department. We would have a Umatilla hospital. We would have all these other things. We would have this, but we don't have it.
One thing that was really interesting in the meeting was when the county spoke about their funds and their grant program that they have. People can apply for their pot of enterprise zone funds. And the question was posed to the county, do the taxing districts where the enterprise zone is, do they get some sort of preference, on grant applications? And the comment was yes, but then in the room, no single taxing district knew these grant funds even existed or had ever been awarded them. So I think more information on that grant program would be very beneficial as well.
The other kind of sidebar conversation with this, I'll share some of my general thoughts is some of the comments made, I'm not so sure that the enterprise zone is the appropriate venue for the comments that are being expressed. Meaning, those districts likely would be better served going to their state representatives in the state legislature for some of those funds. Now, of course, it's unbelievably and highly competitive at the state level. It costs money to have a lobbyist in Salem, and so it's difficult, to say the very least, to be able to do that and to have it with some success. But one of the comments that I heard, specifically, I'll highlight the fire district. So Chief Grant expressed that they provide a rather substantial, at the very least, it's not paramedic, but EMS and immediate medical services. We're a small community, but every community should have access to that at some level. And you could debate where those thresholds should be, but at some level they should be there, and they're providing a rather substantial and costly and time consuming and resource, imperative service, intense service. There's no state legislative dollars and funding attached to our district doing that. So, their board has made a operational decision to provide that service to the betterment of all the community. And I want to applaud them and think that's a terrific decision. Thing that's tough about that is it comes with no funding. There's not like 911 dollars that can go towards that or some other earmarked dollars from the state, but there probably maybe should be, but there isn't today. So maybe between now and when we get to today, there's some opportunity for us to maybe partner with them to do that, because it's in the best interest, I believe, of the city. At the very least, that's quality of life, if not better. It's part of the same justifications as why we gave dollars to the hospital district to build new facilities, because growing and thriving communities have access to affordable health care and have access to emergency health services when they need it at a high level in which they need it. And so we should probably figure out a way to support that program according to the way that where I'm sitting. That said, that support might not look the way that they might want to look. Maybe that support is we can help pay for a lobbyist to do something in Salem to get earmarks of $1 billion, or whatever the number is, to be spread out. Maybe that's where we think it's worth, or maybe it's locally to do something there. I don't know the answers to those questions. Similar with school district, you heard Superintendent Sipe talk about their way that their funding is set up. So we collect all of our taxes, and the report they gave us, they get $21 million a year from the state, but we only collect about 6 million here. So we collect 6 million, send it to the state, and they turn around and give us 21 million. So every dollar in taxes we collect, we get $3 back. They're the only district that gets that. Now, that's the way I tell the story. That's not the way they tell the story. Because my district and the hospital district, and the fire district, and mosquito district, and the library district, like I don't give the money to the state and get $4 back for any program unless I apply for grants and beat other people in the state for our programs. So what's difficult there is I'm not so sure the enterprise zone is the right venue to say we should be giving more funds, because here's the irony of it all. But for the enterprise zone, the majority of the funds brought in for the enterprise zone would not even be going to the Umatilla School District. The majority of those all out there in the industrial park are in the Hermiston School District. So right now we have earmarks in our enterprise zone for the Umatilla School District to get funds when those come on board. But when the enterprise zone leaves, all of that money will go to the Hermiston School District, unless we create a local option levy, which we can do, or an urban renewal district, which will come to you at some point within the next 15 years to talk about, or probably within the next 5 years as an option for that, so that we can guarantee that those funds stay here, because moving a school district boundary is basically an act of God. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know where those discussions come into play in all of this. I don't know how appropriate it is for the city to talk about, well, have you thought about this, or this, or working through the state or working through the feds? You know, there's been no hesitation to tell us what we should be doing with these funds. I'm trying not to reciprocate that comment back about, well, what about? I'm not trying to second guess any of the boards. That's for them to decide. And if we are able to share funds for them, my recommendation would be unless we come up with some sort of earmark for a specific capital improvement, for example, if funds are shared, it should be given totally unencumbered and let those boards decide what's best for their organization. That's what they've been elected to do. That's what they should do with those dollars. But it's going to be difficult. Again, it's multi-layered. There's so many, it's very technical, I think. And for me as a city manager, when I sit here and I look at $280 million over the next 6 years, it puts me in an unbelievably difficult position to say, I recognize that these districts are impacted. There's no doubt. And perhaps it's not fair. And I would argue it's not fair. But to what detriment are we going to suffer for that? And that's what you've been elected to do, is to spend these funds within your purview. I will say I've sat in meetings recently in the last 3 months with elected officials in the state, not just from our district, but others. And it was confirmed over and over again when talking about enterprise zones that the legislator, first of all, they just updated the enterprise zone program last year, but it was acknowledged that it is a economic development policy, that they recognize that there are short-term impacts in exchange for long-term economic gains. And that's the basis of the program. The city didn't create the enterprise zone. We just were given the sandbox to play in, and we're playing by those rules. If we don't like the rules of the enterprise zone, perhaps we should be going to the legislature and saying it should be updated to include the other districts. And I would argue, from my chair, I would advocate for that yes, it's an economic development program, but we should have something in there for other impacted districts. But this is the way that it's set up today. So those are just my comments from my soapbox a little bit.
I think it's a big discussion, you know, and yes, I feel that, as you say, there's a lot of pieces of it, you know. Does this affect this? 100%. And it's difficult to say, you know, this is more important than that or whatever, because they all play a huge role in our citizens. You know, it's going to be impactful. It doesn't matter. We have to have a hospital. We have to have fire. We have to have all these other special tax indices. We just have. So What does that look like? I'm not sure. So.
Well, it kind of goes back to my initial comment that this is so much to sift through and to digest. I mean, I believe that, you know, we could spend potentially, I mean, a half a day, sitting, talking, working through details. I think it's important to understand, what the needs are, from the various districts. I think it's important to understand what the wants are, because obviously there's a difference between the want and the need. And also, you know, what the total budgets of these districts are, to be able to have, kind of a gauge as to, you know, a ratio of who, you know, may, you know, have a bigger bucket than another. Also, there's so much, to try to understand. And so that was kind of what I was trying to relay earlier, was that, you know, we need to sit down and talk about this stuff, and then we need to spend some time on it.
And we're not talking about this fiscal year. I think everybody in those meetings acknowledged that we have an adopted budget already for this fiscal year. But again, we're talking about 1 million this year, which is not in play, but next year it's 3 million, which is a lot of money. But when you try to share 3 million across, you know, more than 10 districts, it's not a whole lot.
3 million is 200 million.
Right.
Yeah.
3 million split, like if I'm understanding right, 300 million or 3 million, 3 million split. It doesn't seem like a ton between all the different districts, but some, maybe that old saying like, you give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, and then, but maybe if we took the money and lobbied for them, like you suggested, it's a possibility. Maybe it would teach them to fish on their own, maybe, or something, you know. Maybe I don't know what the reward would be greater.
I think that is another avenue that needs to be absolutely, championed. And, you know, I believe that all of these districts, and I didn't realize that, that they weren't, even allowed to go out for funding, right? Is that's my understanding.
Not directly, correct.
And so, you know, hopefully things will begin to change, but at the same time, hopefully also there are people in place and that, you know, the grant writers, the folks that are, in the know about how to navigate the system to receive funds. So,
yeah. To the special districts, just to give you a very high level summary, the reason why they weren't able to do it because the Oregon State Constitution has home rule charter, and home rule charter recognizes essentially counties and cities, but not special districts. And so they had to, the legislation that went through and passed didn't amend the Constitution or charter necessarily, but it updated definitions within the ORS that allows now special districts to have access to those funds. I mean, it's much more detailed than that, but that's really the gist of it. So that they, but up until quite literally this last legislative session, yeah, Darla's correct. They weren't able to directly go after those dollars. That's correct. The last thing I just wanted to, I guess, highlight on there is that the one of the things that we've been successful with and that I think would be a worthwhile option exploring is we've shared our resources with other cities and other districts, meaning, so we have a grant writer that we use, and we've shared him. I mean, sometimes they contract out, but some of the smaller cities like Echo, we've said, we'll help you because we have a joint grant application and we'll write it all. And all I need you to do is vote and sign. We offer that to the hospital district. It's because the city didn't assign staff resources to that, and the hospital district doesn't have. Do you have anybody on staff specific? One part-time. It's not enough staff resources for that program to move through. So the offer was made, it was graciously accepted, and it was made in good faith to move forward. But we didn't just we didn't assign it the staff resource that needed to sort of push that through. So lesson learned, we can sort of rinse and repeat in a different way on how to move that forward. We've shared our planners with like the city of Echo. We have IGAs with the city of Hermiston and the sheriff department, for example, and the county. And we partnered with a West End lobby group with Pacific West when we were lobbying in Salem for the last 3 years. That we don't have that contract this year, but we've done that the last several years. And so there are ways in which the other districts out here, and I think you mentioned it, Councilor Duff, also other cities, the fire department, for example, might be a department within the city. So it's not, but we can treat it in such a way that if we have a lobbyist or somebody there, we can make that person available. We could pick up that tab, because I would argue that whatever we spend on that person for other districts' help is going to be unbelievably well spent, money well spent. And so there's ways in which we might be able to share in-kind resources, I suppose, rather than cash necessarily for the mutual goals and benefits. So I think those are avenues worth exploring further as well.
So, I mean, have you got what you need at this point? Do we need to discuss where?
Sounds like you are where I'm at, which is we're sort of all over the place. And so sort of continue to move forward broadly and until such time it's maybe there's an opportunity to narrow things down and be more narrow focused. Sounds like there might be an opportunity for joint work sessions in our future with some of these other districts. We did that a year ago with the county and the city of Hermiston. We can do that with the other districts here as well. Yeah, that way we can get elected officials in the room. It'll be tough to get everybody together, but maybe we can do that, break that up a little bit if we need to, or we can work with the districts to figure out what would be the most appropriate way to do that. So I just wanted to express that even though there is no legal obligation, I do think that I strongly believe it's in the city's best interest to find ways to share resources where we can, and that have meaningful benefit to the districts, which is why I struggle a little bit with, does $20,000 each year, does that really get us anywhere? Is there a better way to do that? Maybe it does. And we have a few little earmarks for that, $50,000 a year from each of these agreements. But there might be other ways in which we can appropriate those resources that get us to maybe shared success in pursuing grants or shared success in some opportunities where our goals are aligned. Okay, we'll move forward broadly.
Any other discussion or questions? This is a beautiful example of growth. And we are absolutely experiencing growth. We are growing in an unprecedented that is the bottom line when you truly see and understand how complex this is. And what an incredible opportunity, but boy, what it sure comes with question. So I just what my heart goes out to everyone involved, because I know that there's difficulties found from all directions, and you know, I think somebody said a perfect compromise is when everyone walks away, nobody walks away happy, right? So anyway, it's a challenge. So we'll forward for it, and I know that this council absolutely cares about department and the community. So we will absolutely come together. With that, council discussion, let's start with Mr. Duff.
Yeah, you know, just as we sit up here, I feel it because you guys, the taxing district you sent on the board, it's the same relative perspective. And they're fighting for their cause, we're fighting for ours. And the reality is that we're all stewards, and we're all looking for ways to best best fulfill our duties. So it's the same thing. You know, I want us all to have a broad perspective, and I say this all the time about the 10,000-foot view, right? We're all involved, in it, you know. And I'm gonna point out Darla. Darla has a great perspective because she's not only on one district, she's on two. And she communicates with several others. And so she comes from a viewpoint that she sees multiple, which is really good. I only see it from my vantage point, means it's sitting up here. So, but I try and keep in perspective all people here and how we affect others. So I agree, it is a complex, very complex issue. And I also agree with you, and it kind of triggered something in my head. Shouldn't matter about the interview. It should matter to us about helping those taxing districts that need to do more to support our growth. Because, let's face it, I truly believe in the next 10 years that we'll be a third again the size we are now. And that's substantial. If you look at, if you make Hermiston a third size, which is probably going to be, our general area is going to be pretty large. So with that, we have to be forward thinking. Something that our forefathers didn't do because they didn't have resources. And I applaud the way that you're thinking because you do want to encompass everyone. And that's why, you know, for the first time, we have a staff for the city that we've never had. We have staff that actually do the job that they're supposed to do, and we're growing in a philosophy of going forward. So that's what I really appreciate where we're going. And a lot of people have said that, well, there's always staff at City Hall. Well, they should have been here 15, 20 years ago. So we're just now coming, you know, it's the same thing. We need a 12-inch main line. It's the same thing. We should have had it 30 years ago. So I don't know, I'm going on a tangent. But I thank you for your broad perspective, and you know, you really foster that with your team. So I think it's difficult for people like me that have been around here for 25 years and making it comfortable the way it is. And sometimes you guys see. So that's that. Waterpalooza, wasn't that like not too long ago?
Mhm.
How was it?
It was very good. It was not as well attended as we had hoped. Watermelon Festival in Oregon kind of stole our thunder a little bit. And so our after event comments have been, we got to pick a different weekend. But other than that, I thought it was, and the feedback we got was very well run. Because it wasn't as well attended as we thought, we had lots of leftover watermelons and cantaloupe. And so most people were walking out of there with like 2 or 3 watermelons and 3 or 4 cantaloupe on the way out. And all smiling faces to get free food, and just really thank Ballinger Farms for donating all of that. It was just really great.
Yeah. I seen all the stuff online, and I seen and I talked to people that attended. They said it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I love to see that we're moving forward, and that little thing just growing. That's great. And speaking of that, again, every meeting I say that I really appreciate your presence online. That is great. I love to see. And just that's about it. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Dunlop. And now we would hear from Councilor Katie.
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet.
I know.
And I want to kind of piggyback off the media presence. I thought it was really great that you guys posted, you know, about like the blasting and all that stuff, because we never used to see that. And then Facebook would be flooded. What was that explosion? What was this? What was that? And so I think it's
So
great
are our
that-
phones.
Yeah, I think it's great that that's getting out there, and just the more stuff that we're seeing online, I think it's just great. You're doing an awesome job. So
Thank you.
and congratulations, Esmeralda, and the rest of your crew. I think it's gonna be awesome. You guys are doing some great things. You guys are all really creative, and I know Miss Carrie, but it's all right. She once, somebody asked her once at school what she did for a living, because she was helping kindergarten, and she said, I heard cats. That's what she said. I felt like, but I'm gonna miss her, but I understand why.
That's a great skill in parks, by the way. It's hurting.
Yeah,
cats.
she never heard some more cats.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So thank you for everything else for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And now it's Councilor Lewis. Okay. Well, Down the line to Councilor Dennison.
All right, well, congratulations on the promotion, that's pretty cool, so look forward to seeing what you got going on and stuff. And thanks everyone for attending, I'll keep it short and sweet, I wish this guy was here, I was gonna tell him to use a little more dynamite to that thing up there. I don't even, maybe a sheet in. Anyway, thanks everybody, and have a great week, guys, stay cool.
All right, thank you. Well, this councilman's been up and asked the street fair this morning, I'm ready to put a bow on it, so I'm asking for a motion to dismiss.
Mr. Council President, I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay, and now we have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And now we'll be into that. I did.
What's new?
I'd say we.
Yeah.
I knew what was coming.